Alright, so AR Lawmakers 150-1. On this one, we're going to be starting with this case for today, so you have to note the timeline numbers, and that's going to be an AR function. It's not one line. Remember, we go in bricks or sequences to examine the case off of the timeline, like, regular life. So we got to talk about some notable mentions. Explicitly, the entire GameStop case here, the Kitty case here for what it does, and basically Schrodinger's is definitely in the box for this one. He's our poison gas, really. I think, when you consider really what's going on, a radioactive isotope. When I didn't study all the cases, I had a couple of notes on them. And I seen the kid, he looked good. He had a solid defense and testimony. I'm sure the questioning gets in later, but basically that's what I want to see as an American standpoint. There might have been a factor in there, but you could see those cases just on the points that I saw. It's like they were really tracking some stuff on some weird indexes. Like this case in the past for $1 million, that wasn't GameStop. It's almost like you didn't know how to factor the standards inside of what happened here because you don't understand it. Well, you'd go S&P, you go long. Your indexes are very long, which is a proper. I can't even say it's a proper indicator of a lawmaker or a senator, so you got to know both. There's bear markets in there, how it's adjusting to the day trade. Otherwise, you're just going to the hedge fund people, and then when Robinhood made a decision, you got fucked up on it, so you could only say something about some case where somebody had something in the past, which wasn't really relevant to the rules of order and the rules of engagement realistically in terms of this, which will be important later about countries and systems as lawmakers saying something to regulate this thing. It's to say really the only thing that can regulate something, the only thing that has the ability is the company. And sometimes the federal government says I have to do this because of a Y index on a thing, which when you say competitively you were challenging everybody, as soon as I exposed that to everybody, you would have changed that index because you couldn't hide under a system or some kind of function. And that's really all I did. And augment should have gone back to that adjustment. But seeing somebody invented that platform, the only way to regulate it in the STEM testing of it is to actually invent it. What I do in my portfolio is I'm basically doing the source code neural networking for mining a bit farm in the market in itself. It's saying, well, I have to have some bear stock right now. I might choose some Y indexes that are S&P by the nature of what that conversation, the law of the universe, say they work the same, A, B, Z, the numbers that correlate there. So in that is this Newtonianly sound? Does this correlate to Copenhagen's interpretation? Does that function reference what I can function in any other lawmaking standard for this situation? And then by grids in compartments through the system, like tracking a portfolio or indexing it to a complete value, that would correlate to why I would change it, and therefore the result Z at that function from these X's, which are prime, xy in different divergences that have to be set from a situation. They have to be. They can't regulate this any other way. It goes to the far end when we talk about this in terms of, well, what about people that can change this indicator ticker in some way? Elon puts information on the internet. You would have to say that at some point in time, the second I regulated something to say anything other than how it's made, and then it's like that's a company patent design. Here we got John Deere dealing with a monopoly on the mechanics for tractors for farmers that have to now hack into the system. They're doing something that they are choosing to do illegal action so they can fix the thing themselves instead of having to send it off when they have the ability to do so. You would look at that lawmaker and say, why was this not a law of a company as soon as it come up and referenced as a case that John Deere would have to change that protocol for the fair usage, especially if you're going to have that about cell phone tech? Because then I would start with that case. I would say, we discussed this matter in detail, well, with John Deere about how law functions when somebody has the ability to do this. Companies in recycling phones, in terms of products that don't break down efficiently, have to have a recycling center to when I sell them. So that way, if I sell them, I have to put it back. And that company recycles the material. Or a foundry of a company that says, I can take in this product because I have the house code to actually do the chemical processes, the machining, the the teardown of those things, and it would say FMA completeness, that the ability for that system to function this and reference a competitive market is fair here, and we let the people decide which methodology is best for them at the time. And using that y-index on a T-note, we can use that wiggle zone instead of saying, well, Elon's battery car is the numbers, and therefore at the point in time the regulation of who can get what order on the pay line is this or nothing, because that's what would be left. And you can't have that, because then it's all a note about insider trading and oligarchy systems. And if those systems aren't right, guess whose ass is on the line for that? Presidencies, because then you push that regulation to come down through the pipes, and the only person responsible is your fucking head. That, I'm not saying to be a situation, you have to do the cause and effects of FMA causality, ball in air, ball in water here. And if you don't understand those things, then you don't really have the ability to be a lawmaker. And I see a lot of that inside of these cases. I see that inside of the people administering these trials and these hearings. It's like, why would you be selected for this other than just a chair for how you do things, and then have that affect how this hearing plays out if you're the people that have to make a ruling decision on this? You're definitely going to be skewed by it, or you're going to be skewed by the information. You should have been skewed from the information before any of those things even became a factor in trial. Who's to say you didn't understand law enough to see that in an impeachment trial and how you conduct lawmaking in this situation, that the index was never going to go there for the 2/3 vote in the Senate? And yet you wasted everybody's time. That is what the problem of this system is, not GameStop.